Kyle Show with Burger King. Watch live at 5 p.m. weekdays on YouTube. Join the conversation on 0808 17 17 700. Talking Scottish football first.
Less than 48 hours to go until it kicks off again. Who is going to win the title? Hearts kick off on Saturday at 3 against Dundee. Rangers against Aberdeen, 5:45. Celtic have to wait until 12:30 on Sunday at Tannadice. What are you thinking? Mark Guidi is here, along with the former Rangers, Sunderland and Scotland star Kevin Kyle. Mark, question for you right away here from Jimmy, who wants to know how many points is it going to take. You've been mentioning this now, and Kevin, we talked about it last week. What do you think? 8 games to go, Mark. How many points is it going to take to be champions?
Potter could be 81 to get you the title. Wow. I thought 84. I've been saying for months and months it would be a low total by normal standards. Normally you need to get 90 points to have a proper chance of winning the title, but now looking at Hearts, that would mean Hearts could still get away with 2 defeats. In the last 8 games. Celtic would have allowed a defeat or a couple of draws, Rangers as well. So I don't think 84 is too high now. I think 81 could be the champions.
And if you look at Hearts' record, Kevin, you're a former Hearts player, they've only lost 5 games all season. So if they can keep their head in it, then the stats would say, the data would say, they're still well on the way to be champions.
They're in the front seat because they're top of the league, 2 points ahead and 3 ahead of Rangers. But for me, as much as I'd love Hearts to upset the fairy tale, be the fairy tale story of the season, Hibs, your rivals, Celtic, Motherwell, Rangers, I mean, that's 4 unbelievably tough games. If Hearts can somehow navigate 6 wins out of 8 games, then they absolutely deserve to be title winners. But I think it's difficult. I think going away to Kilmarnock on Saturday, Kilmarnock were better than what they have been, but I don't think they were that great that Hearts should have taken care of Kilmarnock at the weekend.
Should have been points there for them, 3 points. Mark, I haven't seen you since then. What did you make of it at the weekend? Did that feel as though, it's a huge chance for Rangers and obviously Celtic?
Yeah, I mean, Celtic got their job done. They get the ball rolling on Saturday afternoon. A good win against a really good Motherwell team, overcoming, going a goal behind, and then through the gauntlet down to Hearts. I thought maybe Hearts. I think we were giving our predictions on here this time last week, and I thought, okay, Hearts 1-0. I thought maybe Kilmarnock might have could have dug in for a 0-0. Great respect to Neil McCann and Billy Dawes in the squad. I didn't see Kilmarnock winning that game at all, but they have. They've really blown it wide open. Rangers responded. Not a great performance from Rangers, but they won the game. They got the job done against St Mirren. So, Paul, there's for me, the 3 teams are not going to, obviously, they all can't win every game, but I can't see one of them winning every game. Points are going to be dropped. And it's just a case of who keeps their head, who gets a wee bit of luck as well. You need a wee break or two, and who can just keep it all the way down. But I did say, for months, I did fancy Hearts, but now, with Celtic winning that game on Saturday, I'm going towards Celtic now to lift the title.
All right, what do you think? Give us a call. 0808 17 17 700, the Go Radio Football Show, Thursday evening with Burger King. Some of the headlines today, well, we mentioned it last night. Motherwell's Elijah Just attracting a lot of attention, and why not? Rangers mentioned again, your old club, Kevin. I'm sure you could see the young New Zealand player going anywhere, but would he fit in to Danny Rowe's team?
He would. I think he'd fit into most teams that are after him. I think he's done unbelievably well for Motherwell this year. Scored some important goals. A great finish on Saturday against Celtic, obviously in a defeat. But I always think when you're scoring goals against the Old Firm, that has to alert the Old Firm. Because the reality is that in an Old Firm squad, you're getting more chances every week than other teams. So Elijah Just would fit the kind of model of what Rangers are looking for, a young player that potentially could progress and move on for further cash down the line. But listen, he'll have options other than Rangers come the window, I have no doubt. But an amazing season and still a long way to go yet to finish it off.
Mark, your thoughts on there's a few of them at Motherwell who will be wanted this summer. What about Just?
Yeah, he's a terrific player, Paul, and I think I can totally understand Celtic and Rangers looking at the Motherwell players. Celtic an interest in Mashwanisi. There's a couple of things there. It's low risk in terms of, so they're playing here already. they're settled. You're not bringing over to a new country. They're very, very comfortable in the domestic environment. And then you're hoping that when they come in, they can handle the mentality of playing in front of 50 or 60,000. They can handle that jersey, handle the badge. They can step up and actually become better players and increase their own levels by playing and training with better players every day. So it's all those wee kind of things. But one thing though, Motherwell will not be selling cheaply. You'll not be going there and nicking them for $500,000 or 750 grand. It'll be proper money, and rightly so, because they have performed really, really well under Jens Askew.
Motherwell fans, what are you thinking about, not just the players, the manager as well, who is continually linked now with Celtic and maybe elsewhere for next year? But Kevin, nobody wants them to be going. Of course we don't, but there's going to be some pathway for Bertel Askew, given the way he plays football and the way and the resources that he's got, what he's achieved at Motherwell.
I know, I think super impressed with what this guy brings to the table. To come into Scottish football, not knowing our brand or whatever, he's come in and got players in that squad performing at levels week in, week out that managers beforehand couldn't do. Brought in some players to add to that, then to continue it right up to see. Obviously, they've lost a cup 2 at the last 3 games, and I think it was Dundee and Celtic, which is just kind of tails off their title challenge. I think there was a part of the season where they had so many draws, maybe 5 or 6 draws in the first lot of games. So I think it's like Mark says there with Justin, the Motherwell players, they're tried and tested. Well, he's proved that he can handle Scottish football in terms of a managing capacity. So Celtic's got to look at him. Like you said last week, I think if Martin O'Neill was to win the title with Celtic, you have to offer Martin O'Neill the job. But if he doesn't, then for me, he would be the type of candidate that Celtic fans would probably get excited about, because going away from Saturday, Celtic fans were impressed with how Motherwell performed. Although they were in defeat, you've got to look at the style of football and think, that would be good here, that would be a good watch, because in years gone by, Celtic haven't been a great watch. So no, for me, he's going to have options, and I feel sorry for Motherwell as a club, because potentially they're going to lose one of the best managers they've had. They're probably going to lose some of their players, and then they've then got to rebuild. But until that happens, Motherwell just enjoy what's happening, and it's been a good season for them.
On that, Robbie Keane, of course, at Ferencváros, he said in the last couple of days he thinks he's completed his job over there. And is that an invitation for Celtic to come a calling? Well, what do you think? 0808 17 17 700. Mark, there's so much to happen though in the next 8 weeks for Hearts, for Rangers, for Celtic and the others, St Mirren, Dunfermline, Falkirk, the Cup semi-finals. It's just an absolutely brilliant time of the season, and nobody knows. It's an Agatha Christie thriller.
Aye, no, and you mentioned it there.
I don't know where that came from. Sorry.
I was trying to think. I got Agatha. What we're going to go?
Paul, can we get something from the 20th century and I'm in the 21st? Poirot. Okay.
Aye, I mean, I know we're going off. Dunfermline Falkirk. I know it's a couple of weeks down the line, but what a semi-final that's going to be.
And the edge between those two.
Yeah, I mean, proper. I mean, there's a proper rivalry there between both sets of supporters. So, no, we have got a lot to look forward to. There's a cracking game tomorrow night as well in the Championship, of course, Partick Thistle, St Johnstone. So, there's a few, and we've got a title race. I'm looking forward to seeing Steve Clark and seeing Scotland, but in some respect, I wish there was no break now. I wish the title was just going right through, so we could really get our teeth into it. So we'll be having a week and a break, but big weekend again, Paul. Lots of good games, and I think it's unlikely as well that Celtic, Rangers, and Hearts they're going to win every weekend. Points are going to be dropped.
They really aren't. They're not, are they? Joe's been on. Young Joe Maguire. It's his birthday today. Of course, the voice of Go Radio News.
Birthday, Joe.
And Joe is on saying it should be a Le Carre novel. That's quite a good one, isn't it? Is that the Night Manager and all that? Yeah.
Oh, I like the John. I like the John.
It's good stuff,
Smiley's
isn't it?
people.
Yeah, indeed.
I like the John Le Carre stuff. I do like that.
Kevin, if you're watching on YouTube, is looking calm, but the fact is, he'd have punctured just before the show. So you get a cup of tea, milk, 2 sugar. He's a footballer. You can almost guess.
Just missing a biscuit.
You managed to get here.
I did. I was driving along, and it happens. So just at the Cambuslang turn off, my pal owns a garage here in Toll Cross. Bank Motors gave me a wee shout out, Stevie. So he managed to get the car into the garage, so he's going to fix it. He's gave me one of his wee runarounds to get me here, so I'm here.
Fantastic.
I've made a massive effort, and well worth it.
Sure, we'll find you for being late. Knowing you were here in bags of time as well. And Mark, it's great to have you, because I heard you mentioned on Talk Sport, Jim and Simon, the other day. You were down at Talk Sport HQ.
Yeah.
And it's such, I mean, we love our football here. We kick off the football every night on the Go Radio Football Show with Burger King. And a lot of our listeners enjoy that with Jim and Simon in the morning.
Great, yeah. And they know the people of Scotland are listening, you know, they value it. Jim's great, you know, Paul, he's fantastic, looked after as well. Met with Simon John, he was asking for you again, Paul, and and a nice wee day with Jim. Great company, great stories down there with Michael and Joe, and we were all well looked after.
Sure, mate. Yeah, it's great. Now, Jim is magic, and we get lots of. It's brilliant the way Martin O'Neill, for example, has come on during his time at Celtic, but he goes back on to the mothership because he was on with him normally on a Monday night. What's going to happen between now and the end of the season? And what do you think about the Stevie Clarke situation? We spoke about it last night. Reading between the lines, it sounds to me as though he's not going to be there after the World Cup, but I can understand. He's saying, well, I haven't been offered a contract yet. There's been a discussion about it. Have you got a view, Mark, of what you think will happen?
Well, my view is that I think this summer after the World Cup is a perfect time to call it a day. And that's obviously nothing against Steve Clarke, because he's been fantastic, 3 major tournaments he's got to. But I just think it seems to me that a good time for Steve, if he wants to go and try something different, and for Scotland to try something difficult. Where the difficulty in that is, when do you announce that? So if he's not going to sign a new contract, or he's not going to get offered something that's suitable to him, when do you announce it? You don't want to be announcing that really before the World Cup, I don't think.
No. Because that affects the squad, doesn't it? Or does it?
No,
Sorry.
I wouldn't have thought so.
No.
I think that.
But it creates a negative narrative.
Yeah.
Aye.
Kevin, for people for the tapping that, because you don't win your first game. It's because he's no signed deal. The players on the trick, so you're putting on a plate a negative narrative. However, on the other hand, if they know but they don't want to announce it, if they're coming to game, listen, we're going to call it a day after World Cup, you need to go and start looking for a new manager. Okay, so let's just say Derek McInnes is the number one choice, right? So when do you go and start speaking to Hearts? Because Hearts would want to know, because then Hearts on the back foot, and so it's an awkward one. But I don't know how they deal with it. I don't know how they get round it. But first of all, what needs to happen next is they need to come to a definitive decision. Are you staying or are you going? And then once you know that, you can then work your way from that. But I think it'll come to an end. I'd love to see Steve do it by getting us through to the next stage of World Cup, which we've never done before at a major tournament. And by the way, see if Steve Clarke wants to stay on, I don't have a problem with it. But my opinion, taking everything into account, I think it'd be the perfect time to bow out.
Kevin, what do you think?
I would agree with Mark. What he's done for the national team in the time that he's been in tenor has been amazing, because knowing my wildest dreams did we think we'd qualify for 2 Euros, but to actually qualify for a World Cup again, you know what I mean? I remember it in '98, I think I was 17, and glued to that TV screen in the Bar Pazzarello down in Stranraer, because Colin Calderwood was from Stranraer.
There's another plug.
He was, I know, he was like our local hero.
Of course.
I mean, that's the last time that we can remember it. I remember everybody jumping over to France on their makeshift vans, turning them into like mini camper vans, and away they went. And you're like, oh God, could that happen to us one day? And now it's happened. The only problem is it's like a million miles away on the other side of the pond. But Steve Clarke, whatever he chooses to do, whether he stays on or leaves, he'll have the respect of everybody in that decision he makes, because he's brought a lot of cheer to the national team and to the country.
And Andy's on saying, Kevin, what's it like playing for Scotland? How did you feel then as a Stranraer boy getting that call up to play in the dark blue of your nation?
I remember getting that call. It was a guy called Richard Simpson, that's him. Richard Simpson phoned me, and I was sitting in my bed that Saturday morning, a wee bit worse for wear, Paul.
I was going to say hungover, were you?
I was massively hungover. The season had finished.
Don't listen, young ones.
And the phone rang. Hi Kevin, it's Richard. You've been called up for the national team. I was like, no way. And then the reality kicks in, and then you realise your first game's in the middle of the north. I think it was South Korea in Busan, and I'm like, my dad can't even come and watch me. But the thing for me with the national team, and I think it's for everybody, is that when you stand there and sing your national anthem, that for me is like the pinnacle, because you're one of 11 people or one of a squad of 16 that get that opportunity, and the sense of pride, it's overwhelming, and that's what I take from my time playing with Scotland. I played in an era that wasn't glorious. We mad Bertie Vokes. I could tell a right good few stories about that. Magic cake on a Friday night before a game and a couple of beers. You know what I mean? So it's his way of doing things, but it was what it was. We were asked to be picked. We were there to try and compete. Whether we were good enough or not good enough at that time, that's just where we were as a nation. We've went through squads since then that haven't been good enough, but now we have a squad that is good enough, like we had a squad in '98. National teams have highs, they have lows. I was part of a generation where it just wasn't quite working out. But what I believe Bertie did well was he gave a lot of young guys an opportunity to showcase themselves. And what ended up happening from that opportunity, we had James McFadden, we had his glorious moments. If you hadn't gave James McFadden those opportunities, then we wouldn't have had what he did for Scotland. We had Darren Fletcher being capped at 18, 19, and we had him for 70, 80 caps. So for all the negative parts of what Bertie Vokes did and some of the caps he gave out, there was some good that we quickly forget about. So for me, playing for your country, I think on a scale of having kids, it's probably up there with that.
Just about up there. And what was your highlight, apart from your first cap? What was it? Was there a moment you thought, wow?
It certainly wasn't the Pharaohs away.
No, of course, exactly. Oh, thank you, Mark. I wasn't going to ask him about that, I know.
Mark, I've tried for 20 odd years to forget that.
Yeah.
And here you are the night.
I was on the chat and I was like, oh my, I'll never forget that one.
Indeed.
See, I was really, like, I'll be honest, I was really immature and really quite not very good with the press back in the day. I remember actually speaking to you in the Glasgow airport in the press, and you asked me a couple of pressing questions, and my honest opinion after that was, I thought, that's what I thought. That's just how it was.
Maybe you went wrong.
Listen, I think I was right 100%, but the reality was, as you get to know people, you soon find
the
out
questions,
that's
of course.
I used to say things like, we're just playing against a group of guys that are fishermen. Like, what could possibly go wrong? Well, everything went wrong. And I thought we were just going to turn up there, we'd beat the Faroe Islands, jump the plane, and I'd be back in the bar Pasarel and Shannon, it'd be hunky-dory, away we go. But it didn't work out that way. Barry Ferguson and Paul Lambert managed to rescue us and get us a draw. I don't know if that was great. I remember Bertie in the changing room beforehand put a picture of Lisbon up in the wall and says, this is where we are heading to. The reality was we were heading nowhere near Lisbon. We were, so
is it Lisburn? Lisbon.
It was not good, but the reality
Lisbon's
is
a lovely place, of course, in Northern Ireland. But
that's just where we were. That's just where we were. But the highlight was getting that phone call, getting that recognition, and getting a cap that I have in the house, and my kids can look at it and say, my dad played for Scotland. And
I love that as well, because people will say you're either a hero or you're a villain, Bertie Vokes, but there's some great things that he did. You know, James McFadden, Darren Fletcher. Always remember Jimmy Johnson, and the last time I interviewed him, I said, Jimmy, who was the hardest defender you played against? And he said, Bertie Vokes. And I always remembered that. You mentioned about young players coming through. We don't have enough. In Scotland, we can look at it for the squad for the future. Look at the teams. We don't have enough Scots playing. The manager, Stevie Clark, I nearly said Bertie Vokes. Stevie Clark was asked the other day, room for young players. Obviously, it's in the context of Finlay Curtis getting a call up.
There's always room for someone else. There's always room for an outsider. Off the top of my head, probably 4 players that would have been in this squad if they hadn't been injured. So immediately that's the squad up to 30 players. If you had 26 plus 4, I believe it's 30, is that right? Back at school.
Danny's been on saying, what about Calvin Miller? He's a Falkirk fan, saying he was unlucky not to be called up. Would you agree?
I would agree with that. I would have to agree with that. I think that Calvin Miller's been consistent over the course of the season. I look at Finlay Curtis and I know he's a young prospect because he's took that opportunity to go out and loan to Kilmarnock from Rangers to gain experience. He's maybe played 4 or 5 games. I get that he's younger than a Calvin Miller, so probably that's the reason why he's been given an opportunity, because we do have to think about the next batch. We have an aging squad, but is Finlay Curtis going to break into that squad to get to the World Cup? I don't think so. Would Calvin Miller break into that squad and get to the World Cup? I don't know, but I think Calvin Miller may be better placed because I think he's more mature. I think he's more experienced. He's done the hard yards. He's been at Celtic as a kid. Then went away down South England and worked in the lower leagues, came back to Scotland, and I think he's done really well.
Mark, what do you feel?
Yeah, I don't have a problem with Calvin Miller. I don't have a problem with young Finlay Curtis. I think probably you look at countries and managers that get to major tournaments consistently, and what they tend to say is, so is it 26 players we can take? 3 of them are goalies. So 23 outfield players. What they tend to look at, Paul, you've probably really, out the 23 outfield players, only get 15 or 16 that you think are going to play in the tournament, unless you're doing somebody a turn, but really you're saying, that's going to be my starting team, and that's my 4 or 5 subs that I can come on that are going to make a difference. It's almost like for like when you're making a change. So therefore, you're maybe looking at saying, I can take 3 or 4 guys that just along for the ride, for the experience, and one of them I'd rather take younger ones on to sample it rather than taking guys at 30-year-old. Unless you think the 30-year-old can actually come in and start for you and do a turn, but if you've not been doing that by the time you're 30, it's unlikely you're going to be. So I think that's the kind of outlook on it. But Calvin Miller can still get involved. It's still open out of 23 outfield places, Paul. I would guess Steve Clark would know 19, maybe 20. Maybe a number 9 up for grab, another striker.
Could Barney
There might
Stewart
be
be
a
one of
sense-
them?
Well, yeah, it could be. And again, that would be the point of like taking 1 or 2 to go and give them experience. But he wouldn't do it unless he thought they've got something to offer moving forward. So, he's very, very loyal. Your Grant Hanleys, or those guys, he's loyal to them. They're going to be going to the tournament providing they're fit. And I get that as well. He's got a core group of 12 or 14 professionals that he trusts. He also knows that they're going to be in the road for the best part of 4 weeks. He trusts them. You don't like it as you be in a camp. There's 1 or 2 guys that might go off the rails.
Yep.
So you need to have a core that can look at. You need to know this guy's a good pro. This guy can be holed up for 4 weeks and he's not going to cause many problems. He's not going to try and lead guys astray. All those different things go into it. So it's not just about your footballing ability. It's about who you are as a person as well, and a professional when you're going away for a tournament.
Kevin, so important, isn't it? Because I've seen players, really good players, and you could tell some of them. The Scots tend not to travel well. This was a number of years ago, but they missed being home. And
I've been part of squads where I've caused carnage.
have you?
Aye, under 21s. If anybody ever asks you about Kevin Kyle in Poland, then you'll get a story that would horrify you. Yeah. And listen, make mistakes. I've seen squads where when we used to go and play like an international team, it would be the first team squad would stay on the top floor, and we would under 21s. We would play like for like. And we'd obviously play the night before, so we were always itching to kind of like get out and enjoy. We finished our game, we'd go and have a drink and stuff, but we were never ever allowed. So because you weren't allowed, what do you do when you're not allowed? You go behind people's backs and you cause trouble, and that's what happened. And I've seen the first team players maybe like let themselves down. It's just, I'm not saying it's a culture thing. I would like to think now, the modern day, things have massively changed.
And it has moved on, hasn't it?
Massively has done. Yeah, they might have a beer after the game, but it'll be nothing crazy like we would do. We would be like, when does this plane land back into Glasgow? We're straight into wherever it is in Glasgow.
Victoria's.
No, I think it was Victoria's. The one that burned down. Is it? I can't remember what it's called. Trash. That's it. Loved it in there, Mark. Superb. But it's changed. So when you're saying about young players and experienced players, that's vitally important, because it's not that you don't enjoy being away with your national squad. It's trying to fill the time, because it's repetitive. You wake up, healthy breakfast, then you have you're eating the same things: chicken, potatoes, rice, tomato. It's like constant, and then you're going back to your room and I've just watched that full box set. I'm at the next one. It's trying to stay focused. So so more experienced players can help the younger ones, and vice versa. The younger ones can maybe bring something different to the experienced players. So it's having that balance that makes a good environment around the camp.
Exactly, a lovely McGee's pie or a Tunnock's tea cake. They're really good for you in moderation.
Of course they are.
All right, we're going to talk about the 8 cup finals to go. You know the number, 0808 17 17 700.
The Go Radio Football Show with Burger King.
Yeah, the weekend's football kicks off tomorrow evening, and what a game it is here in Glasgow at Firhill. Partick Thistle, second top of the table against St John's, and of course Partick Thistle with a game in hand. And really, Kevin, they need to do something tomorrow night. Mark Wilson, the team, he's done brilliantly, but from a Glasgow point of view, they need to do it.
It's going to be tough.
Yeah.
They're at home, so they're looking to take home advantage. St John's have been the outstanding team in that championship this season. To come down and look to go straight back up, that's what they would hope for. That's what looks like it's going to happen. I think if they can win tomorrow night, that would kind of seal the promotion for them. But Partick Thistle won't give up. Mark Wilson, I think, from his first proper I'm not saying first full job because he was the manager of Airdrie, obviously, but he's done amazing at Partick Thistle after stepping up from the youth team ranks, losing Brian Graham to Falkirk, which didn't help at the beginning.
Lost half the club with him going, didn't they? Do you know, he did so many jobs. I know,
but
player
to keep in there with an opportunity to try and still get promoted. They'll be in the playoffs safe, and you would like to think that it might be a Kilmarnock or a St Mirren versus Partick Thistle, maybe in a playoff final, which would be a great game. And listen, over like a playoff final, 2 legs, anybody can win.
Mark, you quite often nip out to a game on a Friday night if you can. That's a brilliant match tomorrow night.
Yeah, it is. There's no doubt about it. It'll be packed tomorrow night. You look at Partick Thistle, getting the injury time winner at Morton last Friday, and then of course Morton miss a sitter after that to make it 2-2. St Johnstone getting a result, so it's all to play for. And for the sake of drama, for keeping it going to the wire, you want Partick Thistle to win. You want to go and see them winning and taking it right all the way through.
What do you make of Kasper Schmeichel? So we know it looks as though he may have played his last game. He's out for 10 to 12 months. So I see in the record today, back page, Chris Sutton, exclusive, he's accused Kasper Schmeichel of being selfish and using Celtic. So I think it's because it was announced with his dad on telly rather than with Celtic. What do you feel about the Kasper Schmeichel? One, what he's done at Celtic, but it is a bit unusual that it would be announced that probably he's not going to play for a year on television. Yeah,
well, he's taking control of the story. He's got his narrative out there. I mean, the headline is Kasper Schmeichel probably played his last game for Celtic. May well have played his last game in football. It's highly unlikely you can see him coming back, Paul, and playing at a high level 8, 9, 10 months from now. Highly unlikely. Thankfully, from Celtic's point of view, they've had a very able deputy in Sinisalo, and I have to say, I think it's been an absolute blessing that he was given that game in Stuttgart that night, because Schmeichel's level of performance this season hasn't been anywhere near good enough. He was costing a goal almost every other game. That said, he had 5 or 6 brilliant games that Martin O'Neill highlighted. Feyenoord away, League Cup semi-final win against Rangers. He was terrific in that game as well. But he was losing goals that you wouldn't expect him to be conceding. So I think that Celtic are in the hunt for the title right now because of the change of goalkeeper. So he's had a brilliant career. It could be a horrible way to end. You'd rather see them go out to high. For example, look at Joe Hart a couple of years ago. Look at Alan McGregor. They choose when to go, but it's not been the case for Kasper at this moment in time.
Kevin, what are you thinking about it?
I've got a different view in terms of what was Brendan Rodgers in that thinking, continually playing an injured goalkeeper. Like, I think back to when I played under Mick McCarthy. I loved Mick McCarthy. He was a good man manager who, if he said to me, "Big man, I need you today. If you can play well today, the rest will follow." And I'd be like, "Right, Gaffer, aye." And maybe carrying a knock or a niggle, I would continue on and play and try and help the Gaff. This was Sunderland, early 2003, 2004 possibly. And I would do that, and I would play through injuries to the detriment of myself longer term. And Kasper Schmeichel's probably done that, whereas Celtic Football Club have probably seen 2 transfer windows where they had an opportunity to get a goalkeeper in that could have replaced Kasper Schmeichel, because we can talk about the good saves he's made and kept Celtic in certain games, but we can turn that round the other way and say, what about that mistake against Rangers when he dived and let it underneath him? What about that one against, and that could possibly cost Celtic 4 or 5 points this season that could end up maybe not winning the league.
And the cup final last season.
Cup final.
He went down in instalments.
It's, for me, it now is very evident. You can see why he's made those mistakes, because he hasn't been confident maybe enough diving on that side. By the sounds of what he's obviously, like, I wish him a massive recovery, and hopefully the surgery and everything goes well and he does get back playing. But at 39, by the time all that's done and said, he'll be 40. Goalkeepers do continue on, because we look at Craig Gordon and Alan McGregor was still playing at 40, but it's very, very difficult to play at a high level, and he's now going to miss out on the World Cup. All for what?
Of course.
For what? What's he gained out of playing through an injury?
He said, "I've torn the biceps, torn the rotator cuff, dislocated the shoulder from the labrum. Everything's kind of gone." So listen, you wish him well, but Chris Sutton said, Casper's a legend, but he's been miles off it, and a trio of bosses at Celtic should have dropped him long before his injury became another Celtic mess.
Can't
Nobody
disagree
can
with
be
that.
bigger than the club.
No.
Yeah.
Were Celtic in such a position that they couldn't try somebody else or get somebody else in on loan or a signing in the January window or even the summer last year? Because obviously, clearly, if we're talking the time that he's had this, it's been a long, long time he's had it. But listen, decisions are made and sometimes they're right and sometimes they're wrong. This one seems to be a wrong decision for me, but I wish Kasper Schmeichel all the best.
And mentioning goalkeepers, the Hearts keeper, Craig Gordon, who I think would have been our number one if he was fit, but he's getting checked up. I saw one of the headlines today, Mark, and let's hope he can be back in because he's still in contention, isn't he? If he can get, or is he? If he can get game time.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think that if he was fit, he'd probably Scotland's number one. You know, Angus Gunn, you know, we're in a difficult situation with goalkeepers because nobody's getting regular football. Looking at Scott Bain, but you know, a genuinely good backup goalie, but not a Scotland number one for me. So we do have a problem there. But Angus Gunn has come in and played really well for Scotland. I thought he'd had a disappointing Euros, but he recovered from that to do really well. Craig Gordon's then get that couple of games with Hearts came in. So yeah, you really want Craig Gordon to be fit to give that competition when we go to the World Cup.
And he is consulting a specialist continue his recovery from a shoulder injury. There's another shoulder injury. 0808 17 17 700 on the line is Ross, a Celtic fan. Hi Ross, good evening.
Hi guys, how you doing? All right?
How you doing, Ross?
Yeah,
Hi,
tip
Ross.
top, thank you. What's in your mind
I'm
tonight? Good.
What it is tonight, guys, is obviously, firstly, what Kevin said there, I thought with Kasper Schmeichel, I wish him all the best and I hope everything goes well with his surgery. But for me, in terms of a club, why is no one from Celtic come out and made the fans aware of this? And I just think in terms of their situation, I think the only time when I first found out about it was when obviously Kasper done that interview the other night. But for me, the silence of Celtic is atrocious, and surely the club would have been aware of this. And for Martin O'Neill to be kind of chucked under the bus here, and he's coming out saying, well, Casper's not well and that's why he's not playing, is absolute nonsense. And for me, and just what Kevin said, I think in January, surely we had an opportunity there to go and get another goalkeeper. But for me, I think it's a bit of disrespect in terms of the club, in terms of the fans, because again, we're left in the dark, and here we are with one fit goalkeeper now.
Yeah, I think hard to argue with that. Kevin?
It is hard to argue. You're absolutely 100% spot on. I would imagine that somewhere along the line, the club and Kasper had some sort of conversation to keep it under wraps, hoping that when he went to see a specialist, that it may not have been as bad as what they think. So there might have been some element of let's just not go out there, but he has obviously decided to do that himself, and I think that's possibly disrespectful to the club. But at the same time, the club needs to be in conversation with the players to understand, to let the people know, because like you say, we now Celtic now have Sinsalo in goals with is it Ross Doon would be the backup. That's it. And Sinsalo's been amazing since he came in, and I think that, like Mark says, I totally agree with what you say, Mark, in terms of helping Celtic get to where they've got to now. It's been a big factor, but the silence from Celtic at times and the way that the press go about things is baffling for a club of that size.
But to be fair to them, it's a medical issue. Sounds as though, as Mark said earlier, Kasper Schmeichel, 39 years old, he's done everything. He controlled the narrative in this one, and maybe Celtic didn't quite know the timings. And it is the guy's career, it's his health.
It could also be that Kasper Schmeichel was left out of games that he wanted to play in, and maybe that's it. You know, all bets are off now. I'm just going to take control, because normally you would deal with the club. He knows how the club policies work, and you know you do things together. So he's maybe caught Celtic a wee bit off guard here, but you know, maybe I don't know. But maybe he knew that, well, I'm not going to be playing. Actually, Sinisalo's now the number one, and it's just like, well, he's saying, well, I'm going to go and do one thing.
Ross, what are you thinking anyway? 8 games to go, the weekend round the corner. What's on your mind about the game at Dundee United and the games beforehand? Hearts, are they going to slip up again, or are they going to win the 8 cup finals? What about Rangers? What's in your mind?
Pressure, Paul, innit? It's a stage of the season where you've absolutely no fingernails left, but I don't know, honestly, right now, I think, and I've been saying it for a while, I think there's still another twist to come here, and I firmly believe I don't think Rangers are going to go away. Hearts are in the driving seat, but I think Celtic just need to kind of go game by game at the minute and hope results go our way. But if I was being honest with myself right now, I don't know, I've just got a funny feeling, Paul. I think it's set up for Rangers to win the league this year.
It's funny, as many Celtic fans have said they think it could be Rangers this year. There's a caution among the Celtic fans, and the Rangers fans are not saying too much in general. They're saying, right, let's wait. They've seen the movie before, and it hasn't happened yet. That's interesting. Mark, what do you feel in the psychology of it?
Yeah, I mean, Paul, we could speak to 100 Celtic fans, 100 Rangers fans, 100 Hearts fans tonight, and they'd all have different views. You know, there's Ross saying there he's got a sneaky for Rangers. I totally get that. Hard to disagree with it. I'm sure if you spoke to a number of Rangers fans, given that, you know, the 2-goal lead that they had against Celtic, okay, they won on Sunday, but they left performance, dropping points 2 or 3 away games before that, they would say, nah, it's highly unlikely that we're going to win the league. So that's the beauty of it. Nobody's taking anything for granted. You know, everybody's saying it's on a knife edge. There's 3 points between 3 teams with 8 games to go. I would still, you'll probably, if you're offering me, I know I'm saying Celtic now because they won on Saturday, and I'll stick by that, but I'm still saying out of the 3, I can still see Hearts doing it. I know they've had that setback on Saturday night, but I still think Hearts with Shankland, who's a proper number 9, and Devlin coming back, but particularly Shankland, because I don't really think Hearts have had a proper number 9 in his absence, and yet they still remain top of the table. But as Kevin pointed out earlier, Paul, we can look at the fact there's so many tough games to come.
Are there any easy ones?
Nah, there's none. There's no easy games. There's no gimmies, particularly when you go away from home. There are absolutely no gimmies. You look at Hearts, they go to second bottom, Kilmarnock, who'd get horsed 5-1 a couple of weeks earlier with Falkirk. Hearts beat them. Kilmarnock beat them. You look at Rangers going to bottom of the table, Livingston. They get so they're going on the road. There is absolutely no gimmies.
Derek McInnes confirmed today that Lauren Shankland and Cammy Devlin have resumed training, but that's still a way away from being back, you know, and they've missed them, but they're still top of the table. Kevin, what about the pressure thing? I know there's been pressure on Hearts. I just wonder, pressure on Rangers. Danny Roll has to deliver, or does he? You know, he has to make big progress, and he has until now. And Martin O'Neill, it's not a free hit. Of course it's not. He's at Celtic, but it's remarkable after the Wilfred Nancy month that Celtic are still in there.
I think in terms of pressure, if you're going to put the 3 teams in order of who's the most pressure, who's under the most pressure.
All right, the pressure cooker. Can we get a graphic there, Gary, please?
Celtic have been there, done it so often in the last lot of years. So for me, the experience for them is invaluable. Hearts don't expect to be here, so they shouldn't feel pressure. That's my take on it. They should be grateful. They should just keep going with the riding on the crest of the wave that they're riding on.
Enjoy it.
What will be, will be. Whereas with Rangers, I think there's a massive pressure there because they've now got themselves at like 15 points or something away they were at the beginning of the season to now being within the touching distance and 3 points. And I think Sunday's performance against St Mirren showed a nervousness about it. And I think Saturday night they play Aberdeen. That's an historic end-to-end all-action fixture. That's not going to be easy. They've got another home game. I think they played in United, and then they're away to, I think it might be Falkirk. So going to Falkirk's not going to be easy. Rangers have the 2 home games before the split, but I think that's why we don't hear too much noise about Rangers now, because I think they're just trying to slowly, quietly sneak under the radar. And I get that, and I totally understand that, but I think experience in the end will tell.
I think as well at the boardroom level, Paul, given that the Rangers board backed Danny Rule with more than £10 million to spend in January and kept a couple of players that he asked them to keep when they could have sold them, I think that puts pressure from boardroom level. I think the biggest pressure from boardroom level to a manager is at Rangers for Danny Rule.
Yeah. Nico Raskin, I think, was wanted. I'm not saying it was him, but I know he was wanted. Ross, who's going to win this weekend in your own team then at Dundee United? How are you feeling?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to this weekend. Dundee United obviously were unlucky the weekend there against Dundee, and I think, as I say, Tannadice is never an easy place to go, and I know Dundee United have come under a bit of cosh at the minute, but I firmly believe, Paul, I think it will still be a difficult game up there. But I think Celtic should be fine, and we'll just need to see what obviously happens on Saturday night at Ibrox, and obviously the Hearts game. But
Rangers have got a good
just think
record
that-
against Aberdeen, haven't they, at Ibrox? So you fancy Rangers? Just give us your predictions.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah,
And
I fancy
Hearts
Rangers
Dundee?
to win.
Who are you going for?
I think Hearts will be fine to come through that. I think they'll
Okay,
be fine.
Ross. Where are you refereeing this weekend?
Refereeing tomorrow night at Barrafield. I've got Celtic and Hibs tomorrow night.
All
So
right, okay.
yeah, I'm there.
Ross, thanks. I love it. You're a referee. You come on the programme as well. And
I'm
Kevin's
impartial, Paul. That's what it is.
Kevin's
Impartial.
gone. He's gone white. Okay.
I'm not going to speak to anyone about refereeing. Sorry, Ross.
Thanks so much, Ross.
The Go Radio Football Show with Burger King.
Definitely springtime, isn't it, today? The weather, Mark, it's just yeah,
Oh, aye.
fantastic,
Saw that.
isn't it? Great time of year, though.
Golfing weather,
Yeah.
amazing.
Are you a big golfer?
I love the golf.
Well, whatever you do, you'll be big. You're 5',
6'3".
6'3", just
I'm just
slightly
a-
bigger than
aye.
me. Yeah.
My kids are bigger than me now.
Are they?
Aye,
Wow.
My
Yeah.
oldest, he's 20. He's 6'6",
Aye. Yeah.
and then my 15-year-old 6'1",
What? Yeah.
and the other two. Once they start growing, I'm going to panic.
Is this the good Ayrshire or South Ayrshire? Look, Dumfries.
Stranraer.
The Ayr, Stranraer. I know it's Stranraer. Yeah.
I don't know what we
I was
are.
thinking, yeah.
Nah,
Yeah.
my dad was only 5'8", so
Aye, yeah.
he's maybe not my dad.
It's good. And on that bombshell, let's go to the curling.
Did you say curling?
The curling, yeah. Well,
That takes us
Stranraer.
nicely to
Yeah,
the street.
I know you're Stranraer. Yeah,
I know.
exactly. And proud of them, how they did. Just missed out, of course.
I know.
The men.
They were unlucky. They
silver.
were
They
really
were.
unlucky.
Uh-huh.
Aye, to get they nearly
Yeah.
didn't qualify out the group stages. So actually to end up in the final was a great achievement. And I bumped into them last week at the rugby, and they're milking it, they boys. They're absolutely
Quite right,
milking it.
yeah,
Aye,
I know.
absolutely.
You had a great time at Scotland's win. You were at, weren't you?
Superb.
Yeah,
Scotland, France, superb.
sure. Aaron Clark, they came in the car, lovely Merc. It
I
was.
know
It's
they
like
were.
Marks,
Aye.
I saw it.
Superb.
Yeah,
They look after you well at the rugby, that's
yeah,
for
it's
sure.
brilliant, isn't it?
Better experience in the football.
You're a bit of a turncoat, aren't you? Going with the rugby.
Listen, when the freebies offered, I'm there.
Aye. No, it's magnificent, isn't it? So, but we just missed out, of course, on the Triple Crown.
Aye.
Mark, give us your report, your full-time report, the Triple Crown.
I'll file it next week.
I told you the story. Jim White and I were doing it on STV some years ago, obviously, and it was going out to the network, and it was Scotland against Fiji in the World Cup. And it was going out to the whole network, and I was the senior producer, and Jim was the presenter. And on the way to the studio, we looked at each other and said, because they'd changed the rules a wee bit, how many points is it for a try? Because they'd just changed it. And I said, who scores it? There must be somebody. No, it's you. That's the producer. But I'm sure it was great coverage if we can get that one back. But on the football, the Scotland squad, what do you think of it with the goalkeeping position? What about up front? Is there a chance for somebody like Barney Stewart to come through? 0808 17 17 700. We were speaking about Kasper Schmeichel. Ross was on the Celtic fan, and he thinks he's got a sneaky suspicion it's going to be Rangers. Is there a Rangers fan coming on who's going to put the pressure on Celtic? On the Rangers goalkeeping position, Liam Kelly, new contract there. See, Barry mentioned it in a podcast. I think it was mentioned on here a couple of weeks ago. So Liam Kelly, he's a really good number 2.
I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
Definitely. Aye. He's played in the league, so any time that he's needed to step in, he's not let Rangers down, and he's more than ready to be a capable stand-in if Jack Bolton was to perform. But a contract, lifelong Rangers fan, that's a dream.
Yep.
So fair play to Liam Kelly.
Sure, another 2 years. His distribution's excellent, Mark, isn't it? As our goalkeeping expert.
Yeah, no, I can remember him at Livy. I just watched him in a warm up, however long ago it was, 7, 8, 9 years ago. And I loved his agility. Just that really caught my eye. Because he's not the tall, he's not the bulkiest, he doesn't fill the goal like most goalkeepers you see nowadays. But his agility is good. Another thing that we were talking about earlier in terms of being a good pro and being a good person, he's very, very bubbly. He's a very popular player at the Scotland squads, at Rangers. So you're not going to get a minute's bother with him. Of course, he would love to be the number 1, but he accepts he's a number 2. Right. That's his role at Rangers. That's his role at Scotland. But he doesn't complain. He's all in, and he's also a very good goalkeeper.
Somebody who will be, he is back for Rangers. He came off the bench at the weekend, and I'm sure he would love to play on Saturday night, the big game on Sky, 5:45. Rangers against the Dons. It's Conor Barron, he's back. And what does the manager, Danny Rule, think about his progress?
Yeah, very happy. He worked really hard in the last couple of weeks, but especially on the sixth position, there's a big competition at the moment with Nico, Tochi, Conor and Dio. I have 4 nearly available. I think Dio will also come back soon. And it's not easy for me because all these 4 deserve to play, how they train. All the 4 number 6s give me different profiles, and just 2 can start. 1 will be on the bench and 1 will be sometimes not in the squad. And this is tough, but it's not just this position. I think I also I can just highlight this a little bit. The competition on the left side here makes a fantastic job, but we have with Jaden a guy who is also on front foot who helps, and this is important.
He's got some options there. Kevin, what are you thinking about that in the midfield?
It's great to have those options. I think Conor Barron was pivotal in the early stages of Danny Role's tenure at Rangers. When they went on the run of games, Conor Barron played most of those and was vital in securing the wins that they got. So he's been unfortunate getting an injury when he got it. And if you name the 3 players that's come in, Raskin, Diamande and Chukwani, that's 3 capable footballers in there. So to have 4, it's only a good thing for Rangers. Danny Role's right in terms of a headache for himself, but he'll know his strongest too and who he can rely on coming on. So does Conor Barron come straight back in? I don't think so. I think Rangers team right now is settled. But listen, that can change. People can get injured. People can get suspended. Could change from week to week.
Mark, what's your thoughts on Rangers in general as we go into the last 8 games?
I think that they should have more points on the board, Paul. I think if Rangers don't win the title this season, they'll look upon it as a proper missed opportunity that they recovered from the really bad start under Russell Martin. And yet you look at it, they've only lost 2 league games. I mean, it's quite incredible, but the number of draws that's really done them in. But they're still in there, Paul. You absolutely could not rule them out. There's no reason why Rangers still can't become champions. I think it's unlikely, to be perfectly honest. I just can't see them putting enough together over the next 8 games, but they can still make it an incredible season by lifting the title. And on the centre mid, I think Chukwani and Raskin would probably be the preferred 2, but there's no doubt that Danny Rule does like Conor Barron, and he's certainly got plenty to offer between now and May the 16th.
Quick first hour, we're back for another 60 minutes after the news.
The Go Radio Football Show with Burger King. Watch live at 5 p.m. weekdays on YouTube. Join the conversation on 0808 1717 700. Talking Scottish football first.
We certainly are. We're looking forward to the weekend games. We've mentioned the big 3, Hearts against Dundee, Rangers against Aberdeen, and then Sunday, Dundee United Celtic. But what about Falkirk against St Mirren, Kilmarnock against Livy, and Motherwell against Hibs? Mark, your old club St Mirren still without a manager. Craig McLeish in charge again for the weekend. He was so close, wasn't he, to get the draw against Rangers. The Falkirk game's going to be tough. I don't think anyone knows who is going to be the full-time manager at St Mirren.
No, I think they're going to take their time. I think the way that Keith Lasley and the board will want to do it, Paul, is interview people, see what they've got to say, see what they've got to offer, see if there's a fit, see if there's a chemistry there, out with obviously the natural attraction of a CV, and then take it from there. You've got the wee break coming up just now after this weekend for the international break. Then of course I've got a cup semi-final on April 18th. So ideally they would want to have someone in place by this time next week to then give you, again, start the Monday morning on the training pitch with the guys and get your ideas across, because as well there's every chance they're going to be involved in a relegation fight to avoid this playoff spot. So they want to get somebody in the door soon enough. I'm sure that somebody like Stephen McGinn would be a target for him. I mentioned that on here the night that Stephen Robinson left for Aberdeen. I thought that Stephen would be an obvious contender for them, and no doubt there'll be a couple of others.
Neil Lennon, you mentioned the other day, his name is in the fray.
I think you've got to put Neil's name into the hat because of his experience. I think he's doing a great job at Dunfermline. Looks like they'll probably get a shot at the playoffs, semi-final of the Scottish Cup, along with all the other accolades that Neil Lennon's managed to accumulate over the years. Definitely an option, but a different option because he's older, he's experienced. Stephen McGinn's young and hungry. So it just depends what Keith Lasley and the St Mirren board choose to. What road do they want to go down? Do they want a typical 4-4-2 type of football because that's what they've got now in terms of the personnel, or do they want to try and totally revamp things and go for a possession-based type squad? But that's going to be difficult because they're in a relegation fight just now. So I think the important thing now is, do they just steady the ship with Craig McLeish and who was helping them?
Jamie Langfield, isn't it?
Big Jamie Langfield. Do they steady the ship and just keep things, and can they see it out? But this weekend's important because Falkirk St Mirren, you'd probably fancy Falkirk.
Yeah.
Kilmarnock on the back of a great win against Hearts, against Livingston, bottom of the table, you would probably fancy Kilmarnock. Then that becomes, then St Mirren are sitting in that playoff position 3 points behind Kilmarnock if those results go that way. So there's loads to play for. So St Mirren have got a difficult task of finding the right guy, but also the difficult task of in a relegation fight at the same time.
And Mark, I heard you at the beginning saying Stephen McGinn, I think it was the day it broke, and you said, well, Stephen would be a contender, whether or not he'd want to go just now from Falkirk, who are absolutely motoring, and he's a key member of John McGlynn's management team, along with Paul, isn't he?
Paul Smith,
Paul Smith, the assistant. What a team. And John McGlynn, the job he's done, we haven't mentioned him for about a week or so, Mark, it's just phenomenal because they'll have a big say in where the title goes.
He's been great, and they're going to be in the top six, and rightly so. And what he's done with the squad, we've spoken about it often. He's worked wonders with them, and somebody like Barney Stewart, how they've even just managed a signing like that. So you go and scout him at Heriot Watt University, you put him out on loan, and the end you then work with him. We're talking earlier, Calvin Miller, getting a tune out of him at this level consistently. Brad Spencer, so you could pick 6 or 7 guys. Big Cole Donaldson as well at the back. So they've done really, really well. And you're right, Paul. They will be tough nuts in the top 6 when we get to the split. When Celtic, Rangers, and Hearts are pushing for the title, and they've all have Falkirk to play again. It will not be a gimme. And in terms of Stephen McGinn's education as a young coach, under John McGlynn, he'll be learning loads every day. There's no doubt about that. He
knows so much. What a footballing family, aren't they? The McGinns, with obviously
it's a dynasty, isn't it?
Yeah, Stephen, the oldest, Paul in the middle, and is it John? What's the one at Aston Villa? The captain. Good to see him back. They're in action tonight, aren't they? Of course, in Europa League, and he is back in action. And Villa have missed him, haven't they? Big time.
Oh, they have. The league forms, dipped away. They got a good result in Leo last week, so they should go through tonight. Wouldn't rule them out winning the Europa League. Paul, Unai Emery. I just wonder what the future holds for Unai Emery. I wonder if he might just call it a day in the summer. I don't know how much further he can take Aston Villa, but he is, we talk about elite coaches. He is a world-class coach, Unai Emery. Absolutely world-class coach.
And how he would love to win the Europa League. Yeah, because
win something at Villa. I mean, he's been so close. He's nipped him into the top 4. He's given them a couple of runs in Europe. He's bought well. He's brought the club alive. You look at what he inherited when he took over from Steven Gerrard. They were bottom 4 or whatever it was, into what he's made them now. So again, the Aston Villa very, very lucky to have him. And if you speak to John McGinn about him, he said he's the best in the business.
Of course, Steven Gerrard did make John McGinn captain, I remember. I think that's true, isn't it?
Yeah.
Kevin, did you come up against Unai Emery at all?
No. No, I think my only memories of Unai Emery is probably winning, would I be right in saying, quite a few Europa Leagues with Sevilla?
Absolutely.
So he's like the kind of master of winning this Europa League. So I think what he's done with Aston Villa this year is obviously, firstly when he came in, I think Aston Villa were sitting 4th bottom or something at the time a few years back, and he managed to keep them up, get them into the Champions League. Then had a good run last year, and this year obviously Europa League. They're still in a position to try and qualify for Champions League again through the league process, but like you say, with John McGinn coming back, that's only going to enhance their chance of doing that. But I think there's bigger things out there for Unai Emery.
Think so? Bigger than Villa?
I personally think the Man United job's suited for him.
Think so?
I know Michael Carrick's doing amazing, but he's in there steadying a ship and might just be able to see enough Man United into the Champions League, but to take Man United onto that next level of getting back to where they want to be, I think they're needing somebody like a Unai Emery.
I agree with you. I think Unai Emery would be perfect for Man United, but what the problem would be, Unai Emery is used to having quite a level of control at a football club. He deals directly with owners and he's given carte blanche, and rightly so. You look at Man United, how many layers have you got to go through to get a decision? How many people, when you're the football manager, you say, I want to bring him in and I want to move him on. And you've got to get it past 2 or 3 layers above you, and they'll probably, well, actually, no, we're not. You say, well, with the greatest respect, who are you to tell me why am I here? So I think that if Man United decided to actually give him proper power, proper control, which is highly unlikely, I think it would be fabulous for Man United, but I can't see it happening.
Jurgen Klopp got a win that he really needed last night. We always try and keep a kilt on it, as I was telling people. Mark, that was in journalism, wasn't it? You've always got to get a kilt on it, get something Scottish. Andy Robertson, Liverpool, contract's up in the summer, came up a few days ago. Celtic being mentioned again, but the consensus is they don't see him coming to Celtic at the moment. You've got Kieran Tierney, and I know Scotland accommodate both, but any intel on that? What do you think? He's only 31.
Listen, Andy Robertson has lots to offer. Whatever team he goes to, he's got a lot to offer. Experience, a fantastic footballer. Celtic, I'm led to believe that's his boyhood club. Do Celtic need Andy Robertson? I don't think they do. When they've got Kieran Tierney, they've got Sirachi, who I think's on loan, but I would like to see Celtic make a bid for him because I think he's also a very good player.
What do you like about him?
I don't know. I just think
the runs he makes.
His experience. I think he's quite calm in possession. He's controlled. There's an energy about him. I look at the game at Ibrox when they drew it. I was absolutely astonished that he never got on the park. But I just think he's a great backup to Kieran Tierney. Whereas he's not going to be on the wages an Andy Robertson would be. You couldn't have an Andy Robertson and a Kieran Tierney. You've basically got the same situation with Scotland that sometimes it doesn't work. But where do I see Andy Robertson? Andy Robertson possibly could see his career out maybe somewhere mid-table Premier League, like a Sunderland or something. I think he'd be a great addition to somebody like Sunderland in terms of, I'm saying that biasly because obviously he's a good player, but it brings experience. Whatever he chooses to do, he has that right to do it through the career that he's had.
Mark, what do you think of the story? Has it got legs?
I think it's highly unlikely. Just now, Paul, maybe 2 years, so I can see Andy Robertson going on a free somewhere, the Bosman, getting well weighed in and signing a 2 year somewhere, whether he chooses to go abroad just now and try his luck there or stays in the Premier League. And I think something like a Sunderland, I get where Kevin's coming from, like a proper football club, proper passionate fan base. I think Andy Robertson really revels in that. He's had it for 8 or 9 years at Liverpool, so I can see him going somewhere like that. Maybe a couple of years down the line, if things align, then I could see him being at Celtic because it is his boyhood team. But right now, I think he's still got what I would say another fat contract in him, where he'll earn himself an absolute fortune. I'm not saying money's his motivation, but money is a part of the decision that you make. So therefore, I think it's maybe a couple of years too soon for Celtic. On
the international front, and a question is coming in from Darren, who's saying, what's it going to take Craig Halkett to get into the squad? Come back to that in a minute or two. On Rangers, Andreas Skov Olsen, he's not in the Denmark squad, and Theo Asgard is also missing. He's from the Norway pool for the friendlies upcoming. Well, I guess in Skov Olsen's case, at your old club, we've not seen enough of him, have we, Kevin?
No, that's where I look at Finlay Curtis going out and loan to Kilmarnock. Could Finlay Curtis be a better option than Skov Olsen right now? And for me, the answer's definitely. But Rangers weren't prepared to give Finlay Curtis the 3-4 games that they've managed to give Skov Olsen. Skov Olsen comes with a background of being at Wolfsburg and things like that, and people think, how have we managed to get him? Well, there's a reason why you've managed to get him. And now we're seeing that reason. He's not performing at the levels that he was. So that's how Rangers have been able to attack them. Listen, that could turn around because the reality of a player moving from wherever it is, it takes time to settle. It takes time to understand the game. Sometimes you don't get that time and you disappear and away you go. Sometimes people dig deep and they come back. Maybe Skov Olsen maybe needs a pre-season and what have you. But listen, he's not been picked due to his form. There's no other answer to the question.
Mark, it's no real mystery. Is it an Asgard as well? Again, you just...
it just shows you for these countries, Paul, you need to be playing regular first team football. Asgard's not been doing that. He's not started enough games for Rangers. Skov Olsen, arrived at a fanfare. I jumped into it as well. I thought, do you know what? I like it. You've got coming with glowing recommendations from Brian Laudrup, among others. Like I said, he spoke very well, came across very well, with a bit of a blip at Wolfsburg, and you think, no, he'll go and kick on, but he's not. And you wonder if Danny Rule maybe regretted the decision to not to stick with Finlay Curtis and keep him about the place, because right now it doesn't look like Skov Olsen's. I thought he'd be getting by fullbacks. And I know he's had a couple of assists, but he's just not shown the level that I thought. That said, 8 games to go, he could still have something to offer, Paul. He could, a couple of those games, he could be a match winner. He could go and just, get a couple of, big points for Rangers when it's needed. But so far, you'd have to say he's been a disappointment.
Jimmy's on asking, as a Rangers fan, would you play James Tavernier? Is he back in the team now? Can the captain feel, I'm going to be played regularly? Last 8 games, the eight cup finals.
It's mad to think that James Tavernier gets questioned in terms of the record that he's had at Rangers and the time he's been there. There's parts of it I can understand. There's question about his defending stuff, but for me, from being a centre forward, James Tavernier is probably one of Rangers' best opportunities at putting balls at the box and creating opportunities. He arrives in with his own fair share of goals. So for me, to win games of football, you have to create opportunities. Do Rangers have enough players in their squad right now that can create those opportunities? I don't think they do, and I think that James Tavernier helps in that front. So for me, I would be giving him an opportunity. Maybe not every game. There'll be certain games that will suit James Tavernier, and there's certain games that won't suit James Tavernier. But I think you need to use him in terms of the opportunity. The balls that he puts out the box are brilliant. So for me, I think he's got to get back in the squad and play more regularly.
Because Mark, we all know it could come down to goal difference. It could be a helicopter Sunday.
Yeah. And
Hearts and Rangers at the moment plus 27, Celtic plus 24. And I'm thinking Tavernier in the context of his goals and the way he's just, and some of also his assists as well. And what would you do up front with Chermiti? Would you be dropping Nadiri, maybe playing? Robert's been on. He's suggesting Mikey Moore should play differently, change it. Don't have the 2 up front.
Danny Rule will be considering all those things. I think he's going to go with Chermiti and Nadiri. Mikey Moore, I like where Mikey Moore plays for Rangers, so I don't see him as being right up top. I think he's good coming deeper and taking the game into the final third. So I'd be surprised if Danny Rule changes tactics again. We talk about the board. The board really pushed the boat out to get Nadiri in January for him. Really pushed the boat out to go and get him. So I can't see him leaving him out the side.
He's disappointed though, hasn't he?
He has.
Yeah. Kevin, your former Rangers striker.
He has. He's not. Listen, again, he's not been in the door that long either.
Sure, I know.
So we have to give him a benefit of doubt. But you're watching the games and you're not seeing too much that's going to get you off your seat and think, oh wow. But I will always give players the benefit of doubt. It takes time to settle in, and the role he kind of played in the Celtic game, he was like the guy that kind of received the ball and let Chermiti be in his own up front, and I don't think he's that type of player. But listen, if that's what Danny Rowe's going to go with the 2 up front, then who are we to argue? We just need to see how this plays out. If they end up scoring the goals that get Rangers the title, then we'll eat our words and suck it up, I think.
And move on. Edit the programme. Programmes.
Delete.
What would you say to Darren, who was on earlier, about Craig Halkett? I think a lot of Hearts people are disappointed that he's not in the squad.
I think in terms of the disappointment for me is because Craig Halkett's been consistent over the course of the 28 or 29 games that Hearts have played. Where Hearts' anger is probably aimed at more the Grant Hanley. Grant Hanley isn't playing for Hibs. He's been injured. He's been out of form. He's not getting in the team. He's not played in the last 5 or 6 games, I think it is. I could be wrong in that, but I think it's something like that. But Grant Hanley's been present throughout the whole campaign playing for Scotland, so Steve Clarke knows what Grant Hanley offers. So there's an argument of, well, Grant Hanley's not really performing for Hibs, so why is he getting called? Well, he's getting called up because he's been one of these players in a squad that's managed to get our nation to a World Cup, so you can't then just disregard that. Craig Halkett, he's probably been... It must be really tough for him because I don't know what more he has to do to get that opportunity. What would it been that much harm in putting Craig Halkett in the squad and giving him 45 minutes and see how do you get on?
Because he knows what he'll get from Grant Hanley, for example.
Do I think Craig Halkett is going to start over the centre halves that are already in the Scotland squad? I don't personally think so. It's a bit like the Harry Milne shout as well. Why did Harry Milne not get called up? Was Harry Milne going to displace Kieran Tierney or Andy Robertson? maybe he could go out in the left wing because he's more of a defensive left wing back type player. So there's arguments, and Hearts fans, because they're top of the table and none other players are in the squad, I can totally understand. I'm totally on board with it. But if we're going to really break it down, are those Hearts players going to get ahead of the guys that have got us to the World Cup? And the answer's probably no.
Mark?
Yeah, I mean, like we were saying earlier about Calvin Miller. It's about, Steve Clark's very, very loyal to 14, 15 of those guys, and I don't blame him for that. I don't have a problem with that. If you're Craig Halkett, you can understand the frustration, but if there's any call-offs, then he might get the nod. And what Steve's probably thinking, Halkett's a senior professional, but not an international senior professional, but he's a senior professional. He's been running the block. Steve Clark is just going to say, well, I'm going to bring you in just to have you about the place for a few days and to make it look good. No, he's okay. So Finlay Curtis is younger. He's assessing him for the future. Yeah. But with Craig Halkett, then I don't see that. But if he did bring him into the squad, then I wouldn't have a problem with it at all, because Craig Halkett has played a big part in the success story that Hearts have had this season.
Quite a few Scotland fans coming on. 08, 08, 17, 17, 700. Looking forward to the World Cup, which is 84 days away, I think now. So, wow, won't be long before we're heading over there.
84 sleeps to go.
That's right. Barry loves that before the Old Firm games, doesn't he? 08, 08, 17, 17, 700. A few of you are also asking about next season for the management position at Celtic. So, Jens Bertel Askew has been mentioned quite a few times, and he came to Celtic at the weekend. He lost to Martin O'Neill's team, and Martin O'Neill spoke about him afterwards.
He's done super, absolutely super with the side. Really good, really fine footballing team, and dangers all the time, So they take some risks at the back, so do we. But when you're hoping to try and break the press, all those type of things. Imagine me talking breaking the press, at 74. But all of those things, I think is, I think I said in the notes, it's been a fantastic effort by them. Really fantastic. A really fine footballing team. And well done him.
Mark, what do you think? Could he be the man in the dugout next season?
Yeah, I mean, my view on it, Paul, is if Celtic win the league, I think we spoke about this last year. They must offer it to Martin O'Neill. And even if he doesn't win the league, if he wins the Scottish Cup, you'd have to say, he's in the driving seat. He knows what it's about. There's a trust there from the players. Why not? We messed up 6 months ago by taking him out of the job and putting Wilfred Nancy in. Let's not make that mistake again. Now, Martin O'Neill might not fancy it. He might. But I think you've got to give him the decision and make it his. Because let's say Celtic do win the league and you don't offer Martin O'Neill the job, and you bring in Askew and he gets a horrible start. What are people going to say? Sure. They're on his back right away, and they say, well, he should never be the manager. Why did you not ask Martin O'Neill? Yeah. So the board need to learn from the mistake they made in December by removing Martin O'Neill, as I used the word last week, sacking him effectively, a guy who won 7 games out of 8. So for me, it all comes down to what Martin O'Neill wants to do next season, Paul. As he says there, he's 74. Does he feel he wants to go for another year? Does he feel he can go and build something? Or does he feel if he is a league champion, it can't get any better than this? This is the time to call it a day, potentially a double if they get to a Scottish Cup final. So we don't know. All I would say is it's very much about what Martin O'Neill wants to do. Now, if Martin O'Neill does decide to go, or Celtic don't ask him to stay, then Askew will be in the conversation. He will be a contender. For me, there's no doubt about that, that he is on Celtic's radar. But Martin O'Neill's in the driving seat.
Kevin?
It's hard to disagree with what Mark's saying. There's a part of me that would like to see what Askew could do with a Celtic budget and a Celtic squad, because if there's been muted conversations where behind the scenes, because this happens in football, you can pretend that it doesn't, but it definitely does. If there's an opportunity he could possibly become the Celtic manager, is he already planning, what do I need for this squad? Because he's getting first view of what's needing change. How do we move this club forward? What players are going to fit into a system that he plays at Motherwell? How could I get that at Celtic? So he's maybe in the background planning, just in the off chance that this may come about. And I always believe that if you're able to do that with Motherwell and the players that they have, and this is no disrespect, the wages that they earn, if you have a bigger budget and you're your shopping book becomes a massive catalogue. Celtic can only benefit with somebody like that in the driving seat. And obviously Danny Rule and the other part of the city, having this part of his season under his belt, going into a transfer window in January, they will also improve. Tony Bloom at Hearts, they'll improve. Aberdeen will get Stephen Robinson, they'll improve. Hibs will improve. This time next year we might have a really good title race.
Sure.
And it's only good for Scottish football, but it's only good because of guys like Bear Askew coming into Scottish football. It's making it better, it's making it competitive, and Derek McKinnon's going to Hearts. But Celtic will have options, they will explore all avenues, but they can't dilly-dally, because we know what that's been like in the past. They've made some bad choices, but this time round, Martin O'Neill's your front runner. If he doesn't want it, then I think the Motherwell guys, you're man to take a chance.
Because he is your banker, isn't he? Really, it's a great point you make. No matter, Jurgen Klopp could come in, and if they got a bad start, people would say Martin O'Neill was available. I'm being ridiculous, but do you know what? No matter who it is, you'd say Wilfred Nonsi, but forget Wilfred Nonsi. No matter who it is, and you could easily have a bad. Ange Postecoglou had a bad start to his first season.
There's no guarantees of success.
Yeah,
There never is when you come into a manager's job. There's no guarantees as a player coming in that you're going to hit the ground running. All you're going on is what they've done in the past, and what the Motherwell manager's doing right now is there for everybody to see. And there's very few Celtic fans or Rangers fans or any fans in this country would look at Motherwell and not be disappointed at what they see in front of them. So for me, he's in the contention for the next Celtic manager.
Martin is talking the talk, though, isn't he, as well? And I like the bit of humour about the press, breaking the press. Mark.
I tell you, he wouldn't have been happy at the goal Celtic conceded.
No.
On Saturday.
Wow.
He would not be happy.
Sinisalo, Hatate.
Yeah. Oh, I mean, you look at Celtic at Aberdeen a couple of midweeks ago, and there's two occasions where I call it messing about. I know that's not the right, but because it's the modern game now, but it really does me in as well. And they got away with them. I think Hatate was involved in one of them at Pittodrie, and Sinisalo's had a wonderful save before that. But you look at Celtic at Ibrox, when it was backs to the wall in the Scottish Cup game, what did they do? There was no messing about at the back. If you needed to, you just you clear your lines. I think Martin O'Neill's very much sort of that. But it's ingrained in modern players now that that's the way that you play. But I don't know if Kevin agrees. But for me, Paul, on occasion there is nothing wrong with putting the ball up the park or putting it into the stand, because just it allows you to get your shape back, get a breath back, and just a bit of calm rather than why. As I said, I'd love to see stats, because nobody's ever showed us, because they probably don't want to. In the last 5 years, pick any of the clubs around Europe, when they start playing out for the back, so take it from the shot by kick, or the player will pass it to the goalie inside the 6-yard box, right? How many times has that led to the team scoring? And how many times has that led to the team conceding? And I bet you the percentages would be you'd be conceding 10 for every one that you score.
I'll tell you what we'll do, we'll work that out during the break, then we're back. 0808 17 17 700.
The Go Radio Football Show with Burger King.
Lots of messages coming in, despite it we're staying on till 7 tonight. A lot of chat about Scotland, and also about who is going to win the title, as you would expect. Kevin Kyle is with us, former Rangers, Sunderland, Scotland, Hearts as well. Many other teams. Kevin, help me out. Who else?
What we do? Wolves on loan, Huddersfield on loan, Rochdale on loan, Darlington on loan.
Keep it at Wolves, that was fine.
I know.
Ayr United as well.
United, aye.
Okay. And Mark Guidi, Scotland's top pundit, is with us as well. Journalistic pundit is here. I don't know what he's going to say to that one. Right. So you threw one there. No. You threw one to Kevin there beforehand, sometimes about, the tippy-tappy at the back.
Yeah.
As opposed to sometimes launch the ball upfield when you're getting pinned in. And Mark, you were saying, I'd love to see the stats of how effective or ineffective that is.
Yeah, I mean, and they've never been produced, and I think they've probably not been produced because, I think we'd be horrified if we saw them, Paul. So look, I get it. Keep possession, of course. Keep possession. Try and entertain. Break the press. You must get a lot of satisfaction if you've worked and stuff during the week and it comes off on a Saturday. But every now and again, sometimes just launch it. If you are really under pressure, you've had your backs to the wall and you're giving a pass to your right back or your centre half inside your own penalty box, when you're inviting the opposition onto you, for me, that does not make sense. I do not see the logic in that, and I never will.
Kevin?
Listen, the modern day coach or the modern day manager would try to explain that in a way that it's keeping possession of the ball. If we've got the ball, they can't score, but they're keeping the ball in key areas and they're keeping the ball in ridiculously not so safe areas. And it's all right saying, oh, but he can take the ball, he can pass the ball well, he's really comfortable in it. If you look at Hatate, Saturday, Motherwell's goal, Hatate's really comfortable with the ball at his feet. But the Motherwell midfielder just read him a bit better. And that happens. That's football.
Elliot Watt.
Took the ball off and passed it, scored. Just scored. Celtic's 1-0 down. And what's the alternative? The alternative is Hatate, instead of taking that touch to turn, dip the shoulder, just give it back to Sinsalo. Sinsalo empties it. Celtic's up the park, then they try and build again. Go and press, get the ball back. There's nothing wrong with either. But I'm in the Mark Guidi camp of why risk it when you don't have to. Like, it's not as if you're doing it constantly for 90 minutes, just shelling the ball up the park. You're just picking moments to say, right, we need a breather here. But modern coaches, modern managers, they'd probably argue with us till we're blue in the face that this is what you're supposed to do. But I always say to the kids and anybody watching football, there is no written rule on how football should be played. There never has been, there never will be. Football is a results-based business at the top level. So listen, you're having to put on a performance to entertain your fans. But right now, where we are with 8 games to go, if Hearts were rubbish for 8 games, Rangers were rubbish for 8 games, and Celtic were terrible for 8 games, but won the league, what would you rather have? Your team playing amazing football and attractive and think, oh wow, but lost 2 games out of the 8 that lost you a title, or you win scrappy for 8?
Sure.
It's a pretty no-brainer. But listen, that's another day for an argument, and I'm not getting into that tonight.
Ollie's been on, an Aberdeen fan. We've got an Aberdeen fan has been on, and he's asking about Stephen Robinson. He thinks he wishes he was in a couple of months ago. Too late for this season, and he hopes he gets the time under Dave Cormack. Dave Cormack's never been found wanting in terms of budget. I mean, they're maybe the biggest budget out with Celtic and Rangers, aren't they? Maybe along with Hearts. Stephen Robinson, can he do it? I suppose that's the question at Aberdeen.
Yeah, I mean, and I think as well, what's happened is, Paul, that Derek McInnes and Hearts have kind of moved the bar, or raised the bar rather, for your Hearts, your Aberdeens and your Hibs, because I think their budgets, the 3 of them, will all be much of a muchness. They can all compete for very similar players, and what kind of contracts they can offer them. Obviously, Celtic and Rangers are in a league of their own, and then you've got the rest. So what Hearts are doing, then you're up in the ante. Your recruitment department, right, come on, go and find. Why can we not get Bravo, Claudio? Go and find. As that players, why can we not be challenging in the league? Why can we not consistently be top 3 or splitting the old firm, whatever way you want to put it? But for Aberdeen, it's been a kind of, since Dave Cormack decided to do away with Derek McInnes, it's been a kind of managerial graveyard for really, really good managers. And Jimmy Tilleen won a Scottish Cup, but for a year his performances in the league were far from acceptable. So Stephen Robinson will go in there and we'll get things going, as in he'll make Aberdeen tougher to beat. They'll get, you see the way they pressed Falkirk to get that goal. There's another example, messing about at the back. So he'll get them going. He'll need a window, Paul, to go and bring in his tighter players, because you look at some of the players that Aberdeen have got compared to what St Mirren have had, different kind of players. But again, that takes you back to a point about a football club actually planning properly and having a strategy and having communication and everybody knowing where they stand. So if you're a football club, so take Brighton as a classic example, and a Brentford, but particularly Brighton in the last 10 years, they've had a plan. These are the type of players that we are going to recruit, and this is the type of football we want to play. We select a manager that buys into that. We don't select a manager that wants to go 3-5-2 and go away from a ball-playing team to having 6'4" play. So Aberdeen are going to have to rip it up. So again, as a football club, and Dave Cormack's not just come in last year. He's been in the hot seat for 7 and 8 years now. That's who you've got. Same with Celtic as a football club. What you're doing is you've gone for Brendan Rodgers to bring in Martin O'Neill, to then a Wilfred Nancy who'd ripped up anything that the club had to go and play a 3-5-2 2 days after taking over. And Celtic paid the price for that, and may pay the ultimate price for that come the middle of May. So as a football club, you've got to have a plan, and your manager buys into that. And therefore you're not having a turnover of 20 players every year. You're not having to give a new manager, or we need to give him 10 million, 20 million, 30 million to go and do what he wants to do. So Aberdeen have been, it's a kind of flying by the seat of the pants sometimes, as a lot of football clubs do, but it's not the way to do it nowadays.
Kevin?
No, Aberdeen are the massive club, great history. Always a tough place to go to Pittodrie. But like Mark says, since Derek McInnes, it has been a managerial graveyard. But some manager somewhere is going to get it right, because it's not as if Dave Cormack doesn't back the manager. So could Stevie Robinson be that guy? I think he possibly could be. I feel like Stephen Robinson was due an opportunity at a bigger club to showcase what he really could do, just like Derek McInnes. Although he was at Aberdeen, he was due that opportunity, whether it was Rangers or Hearts. The Derek McInnes Hearts just fits, it just works. I think Stephen Robinson could be similar at Aberdeen. I think it might just work. The fact that your man Alan Burrows is there, that was there at his time at Motherwell, that's also a help. In terms of the chief executive role, because they would have worked together in the past, they're now working again in the future. So hopefully Aberdeen, because no matter what we want for players and managers and stuff, as a Scottish pundit, as a Scottish ex-player, what we want is something good for our game. So our game needs a strong Aberdeen, a strong Hibernian, a strong Hearts, a Celtic and Rangers competing in Europe, and then the rest battling it out. That's what we need. And to get that, we need good managers like Stephen Robinson in at Aberdeen turning their fortunes around, because for too long, they've won a cup there, they won a cup under Jamie Tilleen. It's not really, it's a cup only kind of covers up the problem. It's like putting a plaster on it, but it's still leaking. You're going to have to...
And that's what it did last summer, didn't it?
It's hemorrhaging. And so no, hopefully Aberdeen, Stephen will be able to kind of steady the ship now, and then in the summertime identify what he needs, and then let's see how Aberdeen go next year.
All he said, he's in his 20s and he's sick and tired of the stories of the past. He's heard all about them. Sir Alex Ferguson's days, and Miller McLeish, Mark McGee, John Hewitt, so many other players, Neil Simpson, Neil Cooper. You could just about do the whole team, couldn't you? But it's a long time ago now, so that's why younger ones might not realise here just how big Aberdeen was, because they would come, they beat Rangers, they beat Celtic, and they were the top team for a number of years,
well, Paul,
closely followed by Dundee United.
The first time I ever played Aberdeen for, I think it was for Kilmarnock up at Pittodrie. I couldn't believe the stand and the 18, 19,000 fans, and I'm sitting there thinking, oh wow, this is a proper big club.
There's bouncing,
and it felt like a big club.
Sure.
Because obviously me as a Scottish kid growing up, knowing that Aberdeen were a big club, but until you actually go and experience it, they are a big club. And I must admit, I enjoyed going to Pittodrie. Scored a right couple of winners up there.
Did you?
Scored a winner against them one night, 1-0, and scored a winner for Hearts against them 1-0. Both diving headers, brilliant. Gave me some stick, so they did Aberdeen fans.
They give everyone such stick, don't they?
It's just where they are in the geography of the map, isn't it?
Great people, of course, and we'll be there.
Yes,
indeed. For Aberdeen listener and viewer, we're on YouTube as well as being on the Go Radio Football Show on DAB, of course. Thank you for making the switch. Just a few other messages coming in. What about the comments? Max Johnson was praising Tochi Chukwani. Of course, he played with him at Sturm Graz. So the Scotland fullback saying he reminds him of the Manchester United and French superstar, no pressure here, Paul Pogba, no less. What do you think of that one? A bit of pressure on Chukwani? Everyone says they like the look of him. He's a real competitor. Kevin, what do you feel?
I think that's some comparison. But who am I to disagree with that? Because I haven't played with Chukwani. Max Johnson has. So listen, got to trust his opinion. I think Chukwani's actually done all right since he came into the Rangers squad. Again, he's another one that's just in the door in January. So he's still finding time to settle in, but you can see what he potentially brings to the club. Of all the players that have come in, apart from maybe Rome's at left back, who's been really ultra consistent. Chukwani's actually been decent, and he's a kind of like I'm not saying a Pogba or like a Michael Essien type guy, but he's that kind of dog in the midfield that seems to get his body in good positions, keeps it simple, hard working. So I think you'll see a lot more of him next year.
A battler, a bit of dig, Mark, which Rangers need.
Yeah, he's got that, Paul. There's no doubt. He's got a presence on the pitch. I think he reads the game well. Kevin says uses his body well. He's got, you can tell he's a unit. He's got strength about him, and he's the kind of guy that I think will really take games by the scruff of the the scruff of the neck once he settles more. But he'll have an important part to play for Rangers in the next 8 games. There's no doubt about that.
And Max Johnson, more than decent player, isn't he?
Max Johnson. He didn't have
Good to see him back.
the greatest debut for Scotland when he got called up. But listen, he's a young guy. He'll get another opportunity. I played with his dad, Sticky. What's his name? Alan Johnson.
Oh yeah, of course.
At Sunderland, Kilmarnock.
Sticky.
So that was his nickname. Sticky, isn't it?
Sticky or Magic?
Magic.
Oh, Magic, of course. Yeah.
He was Magic at Sunderland.
Yeah.
But no, listen,
wee Alan.
Wee Alan. But no, listen. Max Johnson's gave opinion, and Max Johnson, listen, he's a young guy as well, and he's got going from Motherwell to Sturm Graz. Respect that, because a lot of kids just stay and be happy in Scotland, but he's took that leap of faith and went abroad and doing well.
Quick break, have a think about your Rangers team for this weekend, and Mark, we'll throw the Celtic one to you for the game on Sunday. That's coming next.
The Go Radio Football Show with Burger King.
I see one of the headlines tonight, they're saying Barry Ferguson saying the mistakes that he felt that Russell Martin made, not taking Vaclav Cherny or turning it into a signing, and also letting Cyril Dessers go. Of course, he said that on the show here a number of times. Kevin, would you disagree with either of those?
No, because what you get with Cyril Dessers and Babak Cherny, they've done it. They've proved their worth when they were at Rangers. Cherny was a great winger, and Big Dessers, however, how much, I don't know how he actually took the stick he took and still performed every week with the level of goals he scored. Like I said last week when I was on, had Rangers got him now, Rangers possibly could be sitting top of the league with the goals that he could provide. But no, I can't disagree with what Barry said there, and I understand why he said it. You're bringing in players from the unknown, whereas there's 2 players that have proved what they could do. So listen, Russell Martin will learn. He did an interview through the week and listened to it. I thought he spoke quite well, but he kept talking about he only had 1 defeat, but he didn't have many wins. So
draw after draw, wasn't it?
So no, listen, can't disagree with Barry.
It's an interview with the Record. I got the Record today as well, Mark. As you know, I still buy the papers, but that must be online at the moment, no doubt, maybe for tomorrow. We've spoken about it before. Cherny could have been really good for Rangers. I mean, it would have been Lon Shanklin probably as well, would have been the ifs, buts and maybes, and that'll all go out the window if Danny Rule can produce a title for Rangers.
Yeah, 8 games, 24 points to play for. I think if Rangers won every game, they'd win the league. 84 points for me will win you the league. I don't see Rangers winning every game, but they're very much in the mix, Paul, very much so. You know, Hearts in 63, Celtic in 61, Rangers in 60. 8 games to go. It's all to play for, and I don't think none of us could say with absolute certainty who is going to win the league. I still believe there's twists and turns to come. There's no doubt about that.
And even the bookies are not sure, are they? I think they moved towards Celtic slightly during the week. It had been Hearts last week, and why wouldn't it be? It's funny how, isn't it, Kevin? A couple of weeks ago, when you looked at it and you thought there's quite a gap there between Hearts and Rangers and Celtic as it was, and then Rangers slipped up, Celtic getting over the line, but there's 3 points between them, between Hearts and Celtic, and there's 2 points. 2 points.
I think it summed it up well last week when we said that if Celtic could produce a result in the afternoon versus Motherwell, that may put a wee bit of pressure on Hearts in the evening, and I think that came to fruition.
So what about this weekend then? Sorry, because Hearts go first against Dundee. What do you think? Who do you fancy? They're 3:00 Saturday.
Form would tell you that Hearts probably should take care of Dundee, but Dundee's had a couple of decent results lately. Like, let's not beat, they beat Motherwell. They were 2-0 down to Dundee United, their rivals, and come back to draw 2-2.
2 down after 94 minutes.
I know. 95, they scored 95, 98 or something. So, like, there's a bit of fight in Dundee. And Dundee, people say, they're sitting 8th, there's nothing really to play for. Well, there is. There's an opportunity to play and win games where it takes you above your rivals and finish 7th in the league. So, if Stephen Presley was to finish 7th in the league after the start and the abuse that he received, I think that's incredible, and it's a pat in the back. I like Big Elvis, and I think he's done a great job there, and I think he'll continue to do a great job there. So Dundee's not going to make it easy for anybody. So Hearts will find that difficult. But I think the return of Shankland, the return of Devlin, I know they've been out for possibly 4 to 6 weeks. It will take them a few games, and probably the international break will come at a good time for Hearts, because if they can get some minutes under the belt this weekend, they then have another week's rest where they might get some closed door friendlies.
So a win for Hearts, 7 to go. Wow. So it's not going to be. Is it going to be Heartbreak Hotel then for Elvis?
No.
So Hearts
I
going
like,
to win.
I like
Sorry,
where you're
yes.
going there. That was decent, to be fair. But no, I think I'm going to sway. I definitely think that Hearts will beat Dundee.
Yeah, Hearts to win. Mark, what do you reckon?
Well, I think it could be a return to sender for Elvis.
Hey!
No, do you know? Here's one I'll throw out.
Yes.
Why not? If Derek McInnes becomes the Scotland manager, I think Hearts would go for Stephen Presley.
Right. Okay. Couple of ifs in there. All right.
I think Stephen Presley,
okay,
given what he's done, the model of Hearts now with the new regime, Elvis, I think, fits perfect into that because he'll go and work, he'll coach. You never hear him moaning about his lot. You know, you never hear him saying, "Oh, my budget was this, or I didn't have that." He just gets on with it, and you know, being able to put his stamp on things at Dundee, been given the time, obviously been given the full support of Gordon Strachan at Dundee as well, has been very, very helpful. But ex-Hearts player, ex-Hearts captain, if he keeps going the way he's going, I see him being a natural replacement.
You've got inquisitive, sort of suspicious mind. You know, you always see these things, right? Are you going for Hearts though? Yes.
To win, yes, very tight. 2-1, nervy game.
Okay, just a verdict. Falkirk St Mirren. What do you think?
I think that's a home win.
Home win.
Yeah.
Mark?
1-0 Falkirk.
Killie against Livy.
2-1 Killie.
2-1 Killie.
Draw.
A draw again. You know,
I just think Marvin Bartley's got
okay.
Hibs.
Sure.
No Hibs. They've got Livingston
Livy.
being very hard to beat. He's kind of done a role similar to what Rob Edwards did at Wolves.
Yeah,
he's went
that's
in
right.
and he's made them hard
point.
to to get beat. Hibs probably should have won the game on Saturday with the chances it created, but they didn't.
Okay, I'd gone for the draw.
Yeah, go for the draw.
On
Killie.
You said you're going for Killie. Still Killie. Motherwell against Hibs.
2-2. It's
a great game there, isn't it? Be just about a full house.
I'm going for Hibs.
You're going for the Hibs, right?
I don't know why. Don't even ask me why, but I'm going for Hibs.
You're going for the Hibs. Rangers against Aberdeen. Kevin, what do you think? Is he going to make changes? Is Tavernier going to start again? He did against St Mirren.
I just believe Rangers at home are a very good side when they get it going. I think of the performance they put in against Hearts. They were very, very good that night. So they're needing a repeat or something like that, and I think they'll win the game comfortably. But you've got to remember, Stephen Robinson's just in the door. He's trying to get this Aberdeen, get the fans on his side straight away. So they're not going. It's not going to be easy. I think both teams will score, but I think Rangers might just edge it.
Rangers to get the win. Mark, what do you feel?
A comfortable 2-0 Rangers.
Right, 2-0 to Rangers. So we don't even need to look at the table. So you both think Hearts would go on to 66 points with a win. Rangers would go on to 63. Celtic on 61 as they face Dundee United. What do you think, Mark? And what about the Celtic team for the game at Tannadice, 12:30?
I mean, we'll find out from Martin O'Neill tomorrow, kind of injury updates, but I don't think it'll be too far. I think Trusty's back available, but I wonder if we'll just stick with Arthur and Scales.
Okay.
Anyway, Sinner-Salwin goals, Donovan, Arthur, Scales and Tierney, Oxlade, Chamberlain, McGregor back, and Hitati. I would leave out Nygren from the starting 11.
Would you?
Yes.
Okay.
Yang, Maeda and Taneki. I think he'll pick a kind of team that'll be very similar to the team he picked at Pataudry when they left Nygren out as well, because it's a sleeves rolled up. I don't think the surface is in particularly good nick at Tannadice, and when the reinforcements need to come on after an hour or so, and then look at it that way.
Scoreline, what do you think?
2-1 Celtic.
2-1 Celtic. So
2-0 Celtic.
2-0 Celtic, because United will be smarting after that. I mean, they would looked absolutely gutted. So you think all three will win at the weekend? Tomorrow night, who's going to be here? It's going to be Charlie Mulgrew along with Barry Ferguson. We'll be looking. We've got the score predictor tomorrow evening, but I'm going to keep yours and find out, because somebody could win £1,000 tomorrow night with Shawfield Timber. Nobody's won it yet. You think it would be easy, Kevin? But it's not, is it?
I think of my own predictions from last weekend. I think I'd backed Rangers to win, which they did. I'd backed Celtic to win, which they did. I backed Kilmarnock to win, which they did. But then the one that I thought was the banker was Hibs versus Livy, became a draw. And I said that actually said Aberdeen and Falkirk was going to be a score draw. So it wasn't too bad.
Listen, good news. It's Andy Walker and Barry tomorrow night. No harm to Big Charlie if he's listening. That's right, he's not here. It's Andy and Barry. Right, before we go, Partick Thistle St Johnstone. Kevin, what do you think?
I think that Partick Thistle, if they can win the game tomorrow night, it'll close the gap to 5 points, which kind of gives them a small fighting chance of maybe doing automatic. So game in hand, which would possibly take it to 2. So Partick Thistle will probably go all out attack tomorrow night to try and win the game, but St John's for me have been the outstanding team in the Championship, and they'll probably fancy themselves coming down to Firhill and getting 3 points. And if they do that, I think that takes them 11 points ahead.
So do you think they will?
I think they will. I don't. I like Willow, and sorry,
You were
Willow,
knocking the ball about the back four there.
I
And
know.
nearly an
I
own
think.
goal.
I think I'm going to go with St Johnstone.
Okay, Mark, what do you feel?
1-1.
1-1 going for the draw. And Ayr against Morton, just the team, who would you go for?
Ayr.
You're going for Ayr. Wraith Rovers, Airdrie, Ross County, Dunfermline, Kevin.
Aye, that's for me. The Fairman, I think the Fairman's. I think they're flying. I think Lenny will see that opportunity of being in the playoffs and giving himself a crack at getting promoted.
And Arbroath against Queen's Park.
Draw.
Thanks so much, Mark. Thank you,
Thanks,
Kevin.
Paul. Thank
Cheers,
you.
Paul. Thanks, Mark.
Great to hear you both. We're back tomorrow night with Andy Walker and Barry Ferguson. We will be live at 5.